Are you bullish for our future?
It's a pivotal time on planet Earth. And now what's happening is energy is moving faster. The more that the energy ascends on the planet, the more it shakes things up. And that means that all of the shadows are being brought to the surface. And shadows within ourselves, shadows within our institutions, and all of that really is rattling. And what's happening at the level of Gaia is she is evolving faster than she has ever evolved before.
Can you speak to the science of why Gaia, Mother Earth, everything energetically is over the top and getting more so?
We have to remember that we're not the only ones evolving. So we are literally sitting on a sentient planet. You know, Gaia herself is a sentient being, and she's evolving at her own pace also. So there's a co-evolution occurring. So we chose to come down here, and we're standing on this rock, and this beautiful rock is sentient. She's darting through space. The whole galaxy is moving. The entire universe is moving. There was a higher purpose to this. We are encoded with a mission, with a task that we came down here for a reason. And that reason is
Are you ready to shine? Shine bright. Woo-hoo! Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wondered what in the world is the energy we're going through, and oh my gosh, are we going through it right now? And if it can help your spiritual growth, then do we have the Christina Lopes Heart Alchemist show for you. Today we'll be talking about the energy going on in the world, what an awakening is, how to awaken, and even how to open your third eye and access your psychic powers. So welcome to the show, Christina. Are you ready to shine?
I am. How are you, Michael?
Woo-hoo. I am doing great. So, Christina, before we dive right into things today, what is the swirling, polarizing, chaotic energy we're all feeling right now?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's both an incredible time to be alive right now and a sometimes frustrating time to be alive and a difficult time to be alive. It's just, the more that the energy ascends on the planet, the more it shakes things up. And that means that all of the shadows are being brought to the surface at the same time also. And shadows within ourselves, shadows within our institutions, within, our big mega systems. And all of that really is rattling. And that creates a lot of internal chaos. And then the internal chaos is then spilled over outwardly because there's 7.5 billion of us down here. So if each one of us is going through, our healing work, things are surfacing from within that had never surfaced before. You multiply that by 7.5 billion people, and that creates a huge kind of layer of static on the planet that's causing a lot of problems, especially for people who are highly sensitive. So although it's amazing to be alive right now, those of us that chose to incarnate right now, we knew full well that it wasn't going to be easy to kind of make this transition. And that's what this lifetime is for us. It's a lifetime of transition. It's a pivotal time on planet Earth. And so it brings with it a lot of difficulties and a lot of challenges for sure.
I see it as I'm bullish. I'm very excited for the future. It is a duck and cover time. Don't get me wrong, but I call this time, particularly 2024, the year of reinvention or the year of the pivot. Nothing of the old is allowed to stand in our personal lives, in the lives all around us. And I'm curious, I really want to get into your story in a minute, but I believe I was reading from you as well. All of the energies we're being bombarded with, even from the sun right now. Can you speak to the science of why Gaia, Mother Earth, everything energetically is kind of over the top and getting more so?
Yeah. So we have to remember that we're not the only ones evolving. So we are literally sitting on a sentient planet. You know, Gaia herself is a sentient being, and she's evolving at her own pace also. So there's a coevolution occurring. So we chose to come down here, and we're standing on this rock, and this beautiful rock is sentient, and she's evolving. She's evolving at her own pace. And what's happening at the level of Gaia is she is evolving faster than she has ever evolved before. So the vibration is changing. It's changing very, very quickly. And we know this scientifically. You know, we know that we're just plunging through space faster and faster and faster. And so that kind of scientific principle of us kind of, you know, this whole galaxy, I think it's moving through space at something like 70,000 miles an hour, which is something ridiculous. But we're barreling through space so quickly, and we're on top of this beautiful rock. She's darting through space. The whole galaxy is moving. The entire universe is moving. Universes are moving. And so all of this movement is occurring, and it's occurring faster and faster. So that is happening. Gaia is evolving. She's going through her own process, and we're sitting on top of her. So, and we're going through our own processes. So all of this is happening at the same time. So, you know, once you really start getting into the energy aspects of what's happening, both individually and on a planetary level, I mean, it's no wonder that things are a little bit challenging down here sometimes, right, Michael?
It makes sense. So I am a triathlete, among other things. In fact, I was supposed to attend the World Championships not too far from where you're at earlier this year, but my baby needed we'll call it a heart tune-up, and she's doing absolutely phenomenally well. It's coincided at the same time. But when I go out on fast runs or fast bike rides, or now with the cold water, really fast swims, I call them rivet runs. And a rivet
Mm,
run means, if you remember, remember, old school airplanes, World War I, World War II, when they would push them to the limit, the rivets would pop out of them if they went too fast. And it feels like we're all being pushed to that point where the rivets pop out. And if I think to Gaia, if I think to the Schumann's resonance, the vibration of the planet, from what I understand, literally, and it's something I'm gifted, well, we all are if we'll take the time, but I'm gifted to be able to hear moment to moment, is the frequency itself is quickening.
yeah, yeah. It's quickening, and you know, you bring up an important point, which is the energy that we used to have, you know, from a planetary perspective. There's been, you know, thousands of years of a sort of a patriarchal kind of energy happening around the planet. So we have a very masculine dominant energy that's happened culturally on a societal level and on a planetary level. And now what's happening is young energy, masculine energy is very beautiful, but it's the energy of doing, 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 doing. And so culturally, we've kind of been programmed do, 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 go, go, hustle, hustle, go, 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 go. And now we're having to relearn what it feels like to go with the flow. You don't have to be pushing, you don't have to be hustling, you don't have to be sprinting everywhere. And in fact, if you do that, if you keep the same vibration that you had before, the doing, the hustling, the driving forward, the trying to climb that corporate ladder faster than ever before, if you keep that energy template, you're going to burn yourself out. That's actually what happened to me. I got very, very sick a couple of years ago, and it was a burnout plus an Epstein-Barr viral infection. And it was literally the universe telling me, girl, you have got to learn how to do things in a new way. Otherwise, you won't stay on the planet very long. And so it's really interesting because what's happening is this play of, at the same time that the energy is moving faster, we don't have to be in the hustle. It's almost like you relax, you learn how to tap into your feminine energy, and you learn to let yourself float down this raging river, whitewater rafting. And that's kind of what I've been learning in these last couple of years, because I'm still healing from all of these things that have happened to me physically, because I was trying to serve the planet. I was trying to coach, I was trying to teach, I was trying to help people as much as possible, but I was doing it from an old paradigm, that American driven kind of energy that I had in me, right? I'm American, I was born in the US, I carry those templates. And so you know, the universe had to show me through a virus and through a burnout that that's not the way that we are co-creating moving forward.
Two near death experiences, two NDEs, And the third accident, it broke all the bones in front of my heart, behind my heart, and above my heart to get me back, if we think of a skiing analogy, in the flow line. With you, I just want to talk science. So there's a sine curve. That's that flow that's super easy. But when we push it, the overlap, we start to blast out of that sine curve. We get in out of synchrony. We get into a state of discordance and things break. And for you, that was the health drawing you inward quite literally under the covers. For me, it was, okay, we're going to give you a more maybe yang way of going, we're just going to break you a few times until you go, I surrender. And I see this 2024 as a beautiful opportunity, not to fight the powers that be, not to fight the forces that be, because we're just projectors, but to find that internal flow line, to find that balanced state, to lean into the shadows with everything we've got, clean that up, and exist there. It doesn't mean you're not doing. It doesn't mean you're not playing. It doesn't mean you're not helping, living, thriving, joyous, whatever that means. But in synchrony now, rather than the disharmony we've been in.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a skill that's hard for a lot of us because this is it's a sort of a recalibration of energy, specifically the play of the masculine and the feminine energy. So we're learning to, rebalance that masculine. We're learning to bring that masculine energy more into a harmonious state, but also to empower our feminine energy, to connect with our feminine energy, to understand what that feminine energy even is, and be able to co-create from that place. And co-creating from a place of feminine is different from co-creating from a place of masculine. The feminine is all about going with the flow, magnetizing things to you instead of constantly having to drive forward and get what you want. It's a totally different vibration, right? But it makes sense, that change from that masculine, overly masculine, dominant, wounded masculine energy to a more feminine energy, precisely because everything is changing so quickly already. The energies are already so intense that you would literally completely drain your physical avatar if we kept living life the old way. So we're having to learn how to adapt very quickly to new energy templates on the planet, for sure.
I call it the drunk tree moment, which is if we keep going at this pace, like the alcoholic who will only quit if their partner leaves them, maybe, or they wrap themselves around a tree, trying to keep up with this pace of this outer world, which we can call it the big bad matrix, this, that, we can call it whatever we want. It's the old paradigm. Love them up. The old paradigm's going away. Love them up with everything you have. Love everything and everyone up. But it's this last gas of faster and faster and quicker until we say, hey, I don't need to hit the tree. No mas. I give. I'm going to be here.
Yeah. And this is sometimes a hard balance, because at the same time, especially for those of us that are sensitive, we can feel in our energy systems that everything is quickening. So if everything is quickening, your subconscious mind, those old systems, that old template wants to say, move faster. Oh my God, everything's going faster. Move faster, move faster. And it sometimes takes really for you to tap into your intuition to understand that, okay, the vibration of everything is moving faster, but my human avatar can take advantage of that huge current. And my human avatar doesn't have to drive so fast, doesn't have to push so much. And so that's sometimes a hard balance to learn, right?
Well, now you're talking about alchemy. And I know you're known for alchemy of the heart. So I'll go just a tiny bit into my childhood. Then I want to go back. I want to go way on back with you. And I want to go to 2013. Then I want to go to 2021 and 2023 again, as you were getting upgrades, I will say. When I grew up, my home by my friends was known as the crazy house. No one would want to come over to the crazy house. My parents, I love them so dearly, were at war the whole time I was growing up, either war against each other, or if they could find a moment to have a truce, it was war against me. And when I went out to college, my poor sister, it was war against my sister. Now, I love them very dearly. They've toned down a little bit and they're much more loving now. But when I go to visit them, and they're yeah, da, 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 da. Just like we had all these tech challenges before the show, which is why we had these inside jokes as we're starting. What I do is I alchemize the craziness and ground in. Hi, mom. Hi, dad. It's not an act. I am going to balance their craziness with centeredness. And I believe that's what we're being challenged to do right now. The more you see it swirling around out here, the more you get to be the eye at the center of the storm.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a, that's a really, really difficult balance sometimes because the energies are so incredibly intense. And on the one hand, you want to make sure that you are not bypassing your work, and I see that in a lot of spiritual communities right now too. As the world gets more intense, as things get more chaotic, there is a lot of suffering out there, and there are some spiritual communities that completely want to bypass that. So it's like, hey, just let the world fall apart and I'm going to stay over here in my island or in my whatever it is. And I don't believe that that's the path either. The path really is the path of merging, of balancing, and of being able to be in this place right now where there's so much chaos and there's a lot of polarization happening, and be able to do that and open your heart more, even in the presence of all of this suffering. That is a hard skill sometimes, but it's such an important skill, such an important skill. And I have to practice that every day, and I'm sure you do too. Anybody who is constantly in front of a camera every day, anyone who's public facing, knows exactly on their skin what's going on outside in the world. You can't really even post a social media post anymore without the intense polarization coming in, someone criticizing you, someone attacking you, someone saying this about you, someone saying that. And so I feel that every day. I really do feel that every day, the intense polarization, how right now it's very difficult to have, just intelligent discourse going on is kind of gone out the window. There's a lot of attack mode. There's you versus me, black versus white. There's always this intense polarization where if you're not pro something, you're anti something. We've lost the middle ground. We've lost the ability temporarily to understand someone else's position, to be able to kind of dip your fingers in every area where you can understand different perspectives. That's the work of reconciliation. It's reconciliation. And I had an exchange with someone on social media not too long ago where the person said to me, I thought you were a spiritual warrior. Where has the spiritual warrior gone? And I answered back, I said, I'm not a spiritual warrior. That the era of warriors is finished. It's warriors. Warring is precisely how we got here in
Thank
the
you.
first place. I'm a spiritual reconciliator. And that's a totally different ball game, because it means that I have to do the work on my heart to be able to open up so that I can listen to this person and I can understand their perspective and where they're coming from. And I listen to that person and where they're coming from and what their perspective is. And then I reconcile both of them. And the world needs a lot more spiritual reconciliators, not warriors. And so it's hard to maintain that balanced, grounded, even keel energy in this polarization. It's hard, but that's what we're here to do, right? Our hearts are fully developed, they are mature enough for us that have incarnated right now. We came perfectly prepared to do this work. It's just a question of, when the energy is really this intense, it's a question of, hey, I'm going to put my phone down instead of being impulsive and answering this comment or whatever. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to meditate more. I'm going to hug more trees. I'm going to just really, really take a step back before engaging in the 3D matrix. I'm going to take a step back, because if I don't take a step back, I'm just going to be adding more fire to an already inflamed situation on the planet. And I think the call for spiritual people is not to do that, but it's hard.
Thank you. And the audience that you and I are speaking to. I call it, we can call it energetically sensitive. We can call it empaths. I call it mystics or mystics in latency, meaning you have all of these skills inside of you to live at that higher level. We just have to get past the overload that's deliberately, in a sense, drowning us and keeping us from recognizing our super skills. So on that note, and I want to dive back, I want to give a lot of how-to today for our spiritual reconciliators. Before we do that, can we take you back in time? Can you walk us forward? It can be a fairly expeditious walk through the timeline because you have had several nodes in your timeline, punctuation marks, punctuation of elevated growth, of elevated emotion, of elevated overwhelm that's brought you beautifully to where you are today.
Yeah, yeah. So my journey, spiritually, my journey began when I was a child, really. I've always been very spiritually sensitive. I come from a long line of women who are spiritual intuitives. My grandmother was kind of the, considered the village witch. And so
Well,
I
you don't
come
have,
from,
I'll pause you. I'm so glad that
yeah,
you said that because you don't come from, I'm spiritual, soft. You come from
yeah,
more, I'm not sure, Quinn Yan. Is that the name? You've got a force to you. You are a
yeah.
force to reckon with, Christina. And I know that's come through in your timeline.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But it didn't come through for a long time. I was very spiritually sensitive as a child, but I had a lot of visitations. I had a lot of trauma in my life. I had a lot going on as a child. And so a lot of things that scared me. I was very tortured by shadow entities and different things when I was a child. And so when I grew up, I really wanted to close that door very quickly. And
Yeah.
I went the science route. I dedicated my life really to going to college, getting all these degrees, going the science route. I'm a trained physical therapist, my doctorate degree. I have my specialization that I focused on was neuropediatrics. And so I went that science route and I just tried to close the door to all these things. And I tried to live a normal life.
Aha.
And then in 2013, all of that fell apart. Like your soul always finds a time when the soul says, okay, enough of this. I've had
Yep.
enough of this. Now it's time for you to wake up to your path, to your next stage. And that's what happened to me in 2013 with the sudden breakup of my marriage. And that was my first major activation. And I knew I wasn't going to go back. I knew I wasn't going to go back to clinical work. I just knew that something major had happened in my life. And I actually started with the activation caused a lot of physical symptoms. And I suffered with a lot of physical symptoms and still do today when I have major upgrades. My physical avatar struggles to kind of get there. But it's happened multiple times. 2013, then 2014, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, another upgrade. And so I very much walk this path of the shaman, I guess. I have a lot of shamanic energy. I have a lot of stellar energy, but a lot of shamanic energy also. And so I just keep going no matter how many upgrades I have. I keep going and I keep working with my body to adjust to those upgrades for sure.
Think this is important that we break out that term because it is so appropriate or apropos of a term because we can label these things as forgive me going down in our lives and I imagine when you had that kundalini awakening it wasn't
Oh
it
my
was
God.
it's going down or as I like to say after ND number one integration is a
Yeah.
I don't get this world. I don't get this body. I don't get any of this. Um,
Yeah.
what is an upgrade? Because I know everybody watching this right now either has just gone through one and is going, what in the world? Or is in one, or forgive me, everybody. It's okay. I promise you it's okay. On the cusp of one in 2024.
So to me, an upgrade is literally your physical avatar having to purge or let go of older energy that no longer serves you. And that could be older energy in terms of, older habits, ancestral energy, family, generational trauma, stuff that you have carried from past lives, from this life, from family, from whatever, from established beliefs that you have, all of these things that make up who you were they start to fall, literally start to fall. They start to be deconstructed. And in nature, this creates a vacuum, and in nature, vacuums are always filled. So you have around 40 trillion sentient cells in your body. They are sentient. So we think of our body as, science has this mechanistic kind of view of the body, that the body is a machine. This thought process has existed in science for a really long time. Your body's not a machine. There's nothing going on robotically about your body. Your body is a community of 40 trillion sentient cells. And each one of them talks to each other. They talk to you, you talk back to them. So it's just this beautiful community. When you upgrade, you have to remember that those 40 trillion cells have to vomit out or let go of everything that no longer serves, of what's old, of what's no longer pertinent for you moving forward. And we find this in every hero's journey. Joseph Campbell talked about this a lot. For you to move into a different level of your life, you have to let go. So there's this metaphor of letting go of baggage, of dropping old things, you see this metaphor everywhere in all of our folkloric history, our stories, all of this, it's a repetitive theme of drop your baggage, let go of that old stuff. And that literally is happening in your body.
Let's talk about some of the signs of a spiritual awakening, and I'm going to mention a few that I've had, not to mention everybody running from you the other direction, and my then fiance all of a sudden, ghost gone, disappeared. But first time was my eyes changed color. And then the second profound thing is, Christina, I went through puberty. I was on the show 2 or 3 years into the show. People can go back and watch my old shows. When I spoke up here. And then for a while, I was stuck in between octaves. And so doing guided meditations was really hard. And then it finally dropped down here. It all changes.
Yeah, it literally changes. And for some people, what may actually be happening to them is a walk-in phenomenon. I don't know if you've talked about walk-ins on your show.
We haven't in the show, so I know what this is, but please enlighten us.
Yeah, so that's happening a lot on the planet right now too. And a walk-in is a double mission that your physical avatar has with more than one soul consciousness. So a lot of times we think that the physical avatar is only prepared for one soul. And, this is my physical avatar, and Christina's soul is incarnated here, and that's going to be me throughout my life. But for some people, there's actually more than one soul that has a contract with this physical avatar. And so at a certain point in your life, your older soul, the first one that came into the physical avatar, can exit and a new soul comes in. And this is frequently where people say that, like, oh my God, my physical features changed, my entire personality changed. I literally forgot everything about my childhood. This is very frequent when people are walk-ins. They forget their childhood, they forget everything in the past, and they're thinking, what the hell happened to me? Like what happened to me? Their likes changed, their dislikes changed, like the movies that they like to watch, just really, it's almost like a new person has stepped in. And this is very common in people who have walk-in contracts with more than one soul.
What does a walk-in contract have to do with an awakening? And does one sometimes precipitate the other?
So not all spiritual awakenings are caused by walk-ins, but a lot of times people have these walk-in contracts because these are two souls wanting to experience a specific type of a timeline, but not really needing to experience the other. So an example, a soul may want to come in and they just may want to experience the childhood, teenage, and early adult years because that's fun to the soul. And they're like, oh yeah, I really want to do that again. But then another soul may be like, I don't really want to go through puberty again. Like I've done that 1,000 times. I'm totally okay. I'm okay to step into a body that's fully mature and start my path from there. And so this is quite common. But then there's also the aspect of you having a spiritual awakening, going through a really rapid ascension process where everything is changing, where your body, your cells are letting go of old energy and new energy is coming in. And sometimes these two things can mimic each other. So sometimes people think, oh my God, I have to be a walk-in for sure because
Mhm.
everything has changed. That's not necessarily true. So these two phenomenon can mimic each other sometimes,
Thank you.
but they're similar sometimes, right?
What are some of the physical avatar characteristics? Let's say you're going through an awakening process. And it's interesting because if I look at your timeline, what little I understand, but I'm grasping more at this level up here. The first one was 6 or 7 years, and it was 4 years in the cave. I spent about 3 years in the cave, so to speak. It was really slow. And then the next one was kind of faster. And then all of a sudden, and it's these upgrades are coming faster and faster and faster. And it's the quickening.
And I think also, you have to remember that your soul prepares a lifetime really well. Like nothing is by chance, right? And so your spiritual awakening and your ascension process is also going to go depending on your energy, your natural energy, your astrology, the way that you are prepared, the timing that you were born. So for me, doing things and changing quickly is in my nature. I'm a double Sagittarius. I'm a Sagittarius, Sagittarius rising, Sagittarius ascendant. And so I have a lot of fire energy. So things have never really happened slowly for me, when things happen, they'd happen. My marriage fell apart. It didn't fall apart in a year. It fell apart like today. It was
Wow.
just, like 1 minute I was married and 1 minute I wasn't. 1 minute I was in a relationship, the next minute, someone literally ghosted me. Like these things happen to me. The major life changes that have happened in my life have happened very, very quickly. And
Yeah.
it's because my energy is an energy that's prepared for that kind of speed. For other people, if they went through their spiritual awakening the way that I went through mine, they would literally have a meltdown. And so the soul knows how to take you through an awakening down here while you're in a physical avatar. Your soul knows what it's doing, and it will work with your nature in this lifetime to make things easier, even though sometimes we think that that the spiritual awakening is really difficult. It can have its challenges, but always remember that your soul is doing everything that it can to make the awakening as painless as possible for your physical avatar.
What happened to your body during this time, to your weight during this time, to everything? And I believe hold that thought for 1 second. We may have a guest host coming on the show.
Hi.
This is Hannah Bear. Do you want to say hi, Hannah Bear?
Hi, Hannah.
No, you're just gonna take her in. So this is the reason behind everything we do. You are okay. You
Oh,
headed down. Do you want to make one smile attempt at a smile?
bye. And then see you. So what were you asking me? The physical symptoms?
Physical symptoms of an awakening and what you experienced.
So for me, I had a ton of physical symptoms, and it had a lot to do with trauma. So the more the accumulated trauma you have in your body from this lifetime, from lifetime before, the harder your awakening can be because you're having to process all of that trauma. You're having to work through it. You're having to see it. You're having to actually remember it. Because for a lot of us, our trauma was repressed or even repressed in our subconscious mind where we don't even remember certain things. So it's been compartmentalized and fragmented. And so the more trauma that you have in your past, the harder your spiritual awakening can be also. So I had a lot of physical symptoms. And then when I had a lot of initial physical symptoms in 2013 when my spiritual awakening kind of kicked off. Rapid weight loss, a lot of just losing weight really, really quickly. um, some people were saying, like you need to go to the doctor, like you're losing weight too quickly. But at that point, I knew and I could feel that what was happening to me, it wasn't a disease, like it was something natural that was happening. And now I always tell people, like you're going through a spiritual awakening. If you are having physical symptoms, there's nothing wrong with going to see a doctor. Please go see a doctor and rule out anything else. Don't just assume it's a spiritual awakening and then it could be something else. So I always caution people. For me, I knew intuitively that it was part of the upgrade, it was part of the spiritual awakening, but my entire physique changed. I lost a lot of weight. My facial feature changed. I mean, even if you just look at my older videos
Oh
of
yeah.
mine, you'll see that, my physical avatar changed. as the years progressed. And it wasn't just having to do with you maturing and aging. It was just a completely different morphology. And then in 2014, when I had a Kundalini awakening, that was probably some of the most severe physical symptoms. There were times there where when I thought, A, I was going insane, or B, there was something seriously wrong with my body, because it was just such extremes. Like, from one moment I could run up a mountain, I had so much energy. The next moment I couldn't even walk up a flight of stairs because I was completely exhausted. I had never felt anything like that before. I was I was incinerating from the inside out. I had never felt that before. Like, I joke with some of my people when I talk about, going through a Kundalini awakening, but there are times when I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would have to go to my kitchen and open the refrigerator, and the only time that the body temperature would come down was if I was standing in front of a damn refrigerator. Like, that's how much I
Face
was
in a
incinerating.
freezer.
Yeah. You did the same thing.
Face in a freezer.
See, there you go.
Yes.
Like, it literally incinerating. I was, oh my God, just so many symptoms. I had a lot of psychological symptoms also. So when I had my Kundalini awakening, I had always been spiritually sensitive, but when I had my Kundalini awakening, it's like this whole door opened up, third eye, all of this, crown chakra, everything. And so I started to go into spontaneous past life regressions, and I would be washing dishes and I could remember, I'd have a memory from a past life come in, and I would have to put my dishes down because it was so intense. It was like I was living it in that moment. I had to put the dishes down and go sit down. I made a little meditation corner for me in my
Yeah.
house, and I literally had to sit down in my meditation mat like about 1,000 times a day at the time. That's how jarring it was. And I remember thinking, okay, again, I have this clinical mind, so I went through a spiritual awakening through the mind of a clinician, which is an interesting perspective to have when you're having a spiritual awakening. And I remember thinking, okay, you might be schizophrenic. It's very rare for you to be diagnosed with schizophrenia later on in life, but this may be happening because you are positively losing your mind. And I remember talking to myself and just thinking, holy moly. But then I would breathe and things would calm down. And so it was this ebb and flow of pains and aches and all kinds of different physical symptoms that would kind of ebb and flow, and then I'd feel better and worse. And it still happens today. I tell people my upgrades, my ascension processes, they're much easier than they were when I was having that main spiritual awakening. The first 6 years of my spiritual awakening were very difficult, from physical symptoms to psychological symptoms to all of these different things. But I still go through upgrades. Everybody does. We're just going to continue to ascend. It's never going to stop. But it just gets easier because I'm also more mature. So I know when an ascension process is here. I know when I'm receiving an upgrade, and I just know to chill. I know to use my tools that I've been using for years. And so the upgrades are now easier, right? Because you're also moving from your cells are also more, the energy is more ascended. So they don't have as much crap to let go of anymore. So it's easier, whereas before I was carrying like a ton of bricks. That's harder to let go. Versus now it's just like, oh, like it's a pound or two. All right, I'll just let it go. And then I move on. So the changes in energy are easier now, but the physical symptoms, I don't think they ever really go away.
Couple key thoughts, and you've got me first off thinking of my sister who does the music for the end of the show, who her career has taken off. She's doing music for A&R and Columbia and hip hop artists, and she's got her own music on Amazon TV shows and all of these things that's taken place after she got many years the symptoms of lupus. And I'm going,
Mm.
isn't that interesting? That's a connection that I never made
Yeah.
before. Why not? She got a massive upgrade so that she could shift and get on this new path. And now her life, it's not about the doings out there, but her life is in alignment and she's on fire.
And this happens to a lot of people. A lot of people are temporarily go through actual disease. I was never diagnosed with anything. I didn't have an actual physical disease in the first 6 years of that awakening, even though it felt like it. But for a lot of people, when they go through an awakening, they actually are diagnosed with conditions, whether it's autoimmune conditions, all kinds of different things can happen. And so they go through that process of healing, that of learning to work with the body, of not fighting the body. I always tell people, if you are diagnosed with anything in your body, do not fight, do not fight, do not fight. You have to unplug from this, the fight against cancer, the fight against Alzheimer's, the fight against, there's always a fight. There's
Yeah.
just
Well,
our
that's that old way
it's
of
just our
being.
Oh, it's just such an old way of being. No, you don't have to fight cancer. You don't have, because literally you are fighting your body, and that's not the way to health. That's not the
Thank
way
you.
to healing. And so when I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr, it was I have never been that sick in my entire life. I've always been very, very healthy. And so Epstein-Barr just completely ravaged me. I was so sick. I was really, really sick. And I remember I did a plant medicine ceremony, and the plant told me, like, you are really sick. If you do not stop and treat yourself, you're not going to be here very long. So I had a huge wake up call in a plant medicine ceremony. And I remember leaving that ceremony, and I really kind of embodied the energy of the shamans. Shamans look at disease as a great master teacher. And so I really embodied that energy. And it was really interesting because I would talk to the virus and I would say, like, I understand why you're here. I understand, why you kind of sparked up in my body. I was going, doing, driven, 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 driven. I wasn't going to stop. So what would it take for me to stop? Oh, it would take a virus that literally makes you feel so tired you can't get out of bed. How's that for making you stop, Christina? And so I started to talk to the virus, and I started to say, thank you for being here. Thank you for your assistance. Thank you for all of the lessons that you have brought me. I no longer need you to, overtake my system in order for me to understand the message. And so the moment that I started to work with the virus, the moment that I started to work with my body, the moment that I started to listen, the moment that I started to communicate with a lot of love, everything changed. And, I'm not completely healed. The virus is still around. And it's interesting because symptoms will pop up when I start to go back, possibly to the little old American template of the hustler driven,
Yes.
person. Then suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm feeling symptoms. Oh, why? Oh, because the last week I've been working like a maniac. Oh, I forgot about chilling a little bit more.
I will break a
And
toe.
so so it's this is a totally different way of looking at disease, is really understanding that any kind of disharmony that happens in your body may be assisting you, may be teaching you a totally, totally different way of looking at disease, isn't it?
Yeah, and it gets to so many beautiful points here. And then don't worry, everybody. I want to talk about opening that third eye before we wrap things up at the end here. But there's a mantra that I came up with after my first NDE, didn't embody until my second NDE, and then the cracking of all the bones around the heart to open my heart way open. But now, if those symptoms come up, even if the internet, shall we say, goes a little bit squidgy on us, I say, first off, I am listening, universe. I am listening, and I promise I am listening. May I have my upgrades or my lessons or my downloads kind, gentle, easy, good. Kind, gentle, easy. We don't need a 2x4. We don't need to get sick. I will listen. And I believe that's where you're at now, so that things are not as, because you are very fiery, but they don't have to come as fiery to you anymore because you've made that agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really, I think it was a huge shift. And this is an important shift for a lot of us that are here to serve the planet. A lot of light workers that are here to help in this transition of humanity. We are encoded with a mission, with a task that we came down here for a reason. And that reason is encoded inside of us. But one thing that a lot of us have to remember, those of us that resonate with the idea of this lifetime being a lifetime of service to others and assisting others, we have to remember that this is also a lifetime of joy and ease and abundance and just wonder and happiness. And so you don't need to be of service in a way that sacrifices yourself. That is so, so important. You can be of service without sacrificing yourself. These two things, I think this wasn't possible in past lives, because if you think about light workers that were here in past lives, I mean, we're talking about, women that were burned at the stake. We're talking about, I mean, we have had lifetimes. Light workers have had, paradigm shifters have had very, very horrible lifetimes down here before. And so, just think about an avatar like a Jesus, for example, like really difficult lifetimes that didn't end very well, And so a lot of us carry this remembrance forward that, oh, here I am again doing this whole service thing. Oh man, this is going to be a heavy lifetime again. And that is not true. It's not true. But that's taken me a long time. I remember, if you ask my mom, one of the first memories that she has of me was that I literally came out of her womb in a bad mood. So I was like this little baby, and my mom would take me to the grocery store, and people would be like, hi, they talk, talking to a baby. And I'd be like, who are you talking to? Look the other way. And that was literally how I came in.
So then before we go to the third eye, pineal gland, this beautiful fun stuff, it's interesting because you talk about your body in I think, is it second person, third person, whichever person you talk about it as an avatar. I talk about it as a rental meat suit. I like yours better. I may upgrade my terminology. You may have copywritten it. I get it. I appreciate that. I'll be sure to put that in there, trademark. But it is a rental meat suit that I love very, very dearly. But the rental meat suit is running patterns that are not mine, that certainly maybe culture, maybe society, maybe the big bad whatever that's trying to keep us suppressed as we're waking up right now, left and right. Or it could be from our elders, from our ancestors, from our tribe. And you call this a template. And so you were running a template from the minute you popped out through this tunnel. You're like, here's Christina, like, here's Johnny. Let me go to my template.
Yeah, it was kind of like, like it seemed like a great idea to come down here. And then once I came out of my mom's womb, I'm like, God damn it, I'm back here again.
And I think I had something, not the grumpy part, but I think in the womb, because I know my birth story, and then they have to, take tongs and deform my head to pull me out. I'm going, no, what was I thinking?
Yeah, but yeah, those templates, sure, they, I wanted to leave a note here of something you were saying that I think it's important for people to also shift a little bit. And it's the idea that this stuff isn't yours, but it is. It really is. Societal templates are ours. We contributed to them, whether in this lifetime or past lifetimes. The patterns, the trauma that exists in our body, they can be coming from stuff that happened in past lives. And so we really are the co-creator of the memory and the experiences that this physical avatar contains. And so a part of the healing process is taking responsibility for the things that have happened to me. I take responsibility. This has happened to me. This is mine. I'm going to help in the transition. And this is an easier way of doing the work, because if we continue to say, this isn't mine, we're in a rejection kind of template. I'm not going to look here. That's not mine. And so what I always tell people is it's all ours. It is all.
You're saying ours. Own it.
Yes. Yeah. Own it. Like, wow, I have all these beliefs inside of me. Okay, maybe these templates, as I like to call them, maybe these templates have come from my family. Maybe they've come from society. Maybe they've come from past lives. It doesn't matter, but they are literally embedded in my physical avatar. Therefore, I take responsibility for them, and I take responsibility for the discernment, for the choice point that I have in keeping that template or releasing it and moving into a new one, and we are so much in that place right now. We are in a place of discernment, of choice. And this is why I don't resonate a lot with with talking about, oh, these big bad mean wolves out there, like the world order or the whatever or the cabal, or I don't resonate with any of that, because that to me is an externalization. It's me washing my
Thank you.
hands of the responsibility that I have in the co-creation of everything that happens down here on earth. And so, while I'm pointing out there, I am not healing in here the things that need to be healed in order for me to contribute to a brighter future. I'm just literally pushing the ball down the road.
Thank you. So people are waking up and oh my God, we're not in Kansas anymore. It's disorienting. It doesn't feel good. Glimpses of amazing greatness. And then we have horrific glimpses at the same time. What do we do? And then we see the world at large, which is a reflection of what's going on in the inside. And in a holographic universe, to me, I would send as much love out, which is really sending as much love in as you can, which helps heal the heart and cracks the heart wide open. But as you're going through this, well, lack of another term, how do we get through it? Or how do we be with it?
I really do think that this is an age of the heart. We are returning to an age of the heart. We're moving from an age of just reason. There's been, enlightenment brought many beautiful things, but enlightenment also brought a fragmentation of energy, and it was a fragmentation of energy towards the left hemisphere of the brain, rational thinking, and all of that, and we lost the right side of the brain, the intuitive thinking. And so all of this kind of has been lost, and we're returning to an age. If you look back at every shamanic culture in the world, they talk about heart intelligence in one way or another. They talk about the heart as the primary center for creating your life, for feeling the world, for envisioning the world. And so a lot of times, people ask me, oh, like, how do I develop my psychic abilities? How do I do this? Everybody's still up here. And meanwhile, I think that really this is a time of the heart, because if your heart is closed, it doesn't matter how developed your third eye is, you're only going to be seeing distortions. If your heart is not open and fully functioning, this third eye will be totally malfunctioning, and you're going to be stuck in paranoia, illusions, lies, and you're just going to be stuck in there because you're not seeing with the clarity of the heart.
Oh, okay. So it's a double dovetail. I want to understand how we see with the clarity of the heart, and I couldn't agree more. And at the same time, well, it's really, we've got to open like at least three things up in a sense at the same time. Not to mention, we really don't want to keep that throat chakra closed. How do we begin to open this up so that in the shamanic, the word for shaman, in fact, we had on Snow Raven a few weeks ago, an indigenous shaman from the Sasha tribe. She is from the northernmost people on the planet. And that's where the term in northern Siberia, before it was called Siberia, it was indigenous land before Russia, discovered it, put that in quotes. But that's where the term shaman or clear seer came from.
That's where the oldest shamanic culture comes from, right? Siberia is the oldest known shamanic cultures on the planet.
Keynote. She wrote a published paper, it might be in Psychology Today, about people who came down with schizophrenia, like you're talking about, epileptic seizures, people even on the autistic spectrum, that there's no such thing in their villages. The shaman would come in and work with these apparently errant energies, which were not errant and were not broken at all. They were the gifts working themselves through that in the West we shut down hard. But there, the shaman recognizes the upgrades. That's what we're talking about here today, for what they are, true, tremendous gifts, and help them work through it until their kundalini rises, until they open their third eye, until they see clearly, until.
And I think that the order to answer your question about like how do we develop, how do we open all this up, to me the safest way and the best way is from the bottom up, from the bottom up, from the bottom up, from the bottom up. And I think that we have to, in spirituality circles, we've got to let go of everything. The past is so beautiful. There's a lot of knowledge, and I even, I dip into the shamanic well. It's the oldest spiritual tradition in the world, and I love it. It's a tradition that I identify with. But we have to look at the past, grab the things that we resonate with, and leave the rest. And a big template that still exists in spirituality today, and it's part of that, the excessive unbalanced masculine energy that's happened on the planet, is that everything has been polarized up. So spirituality is a monk meditating in a cave, or a monk, always up here. Everything is always up here, always up here, always up here. And to me, that's why a lot of these distortions have happened, where you have gurus that then sexually molest their followers or that are completely unethical. This is happening because these people have their upper chakras all well developed, but they haven't taken the time to work on the lower chakras. And so distortions will happen up the ladder. Your energy system develops from the bottom up. And so a lot of times you have to start there.
Thank you. I'd add to that real briefly, because I watched my wife morph before my eyes in an ayahuasca ceremony with a shaman. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime until she landed on an indigenous auntie, shall we say, probably from the Peruvian rainforest or Amazon or someplace. And she goes, how many times, and she was saying this to herself, how many times are you going to have to go through this, which is the male shamanic way of needing to be broken down and destroyed in order to be rebuilt from the ashes? How many times are you going to need to go through this before you get it? There's a different way. That's what you're talking about. Rooting in, taking what works, but not saying we have to destroy ourselves, we have to tear ourselves apart, we have to any of this self, put ourselves into an inferno.
Yeah, and not just that, also that, but also the Eastern traditions too, of mindfulness, 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 mindfulness. Here we are in the mind, in the mind, in the mind, in the mind, in the mind and in the mind and in the mind, that, this is kind of a more of a patriarchal way of spiritual development. And that's been very blessed. But there's also a beautiful, different way of developing. And for me, and with all the clients that I work with, it is so absolutely crucial for them to start working on the bottom chakras and then come up, because your chakras develop in a staircase. Each rung of the ladder happens after another one. So you take a step and then another one develops. So if you want to develop your third eye, if a person asks me, I want to develop my third eye, I want to develop my psychic abilities, I always ask them, how is your first, second, and third chakra? I always, always, always inspect the first, second, and third chakras, because those are the roots of your system. And if you are not rooted, that's where the schizophrenias happen. That's where the insanity happens, because you're too polarized up here and your roots are not strong. If you were a tree, you'd fall over.
When I had my first NDE, and I almost lost my leg, I was lucky to keep my life. Lucky to keep my life, yes. Lucky not to lose my leg, yes. And I couldn't get healed. I ended up stripping off my shoes, going barefoot, first walking, then running. My wife came along. We wrote the bestseller Barefoot Running. And I thought about writing a book called In God's Shoes. I never did it, but it was an interesting idea that came to me, because there was that rooting of connecting to the earth, either quite literally with the feet, or it's sitting there and growing those roots through your spine, through right down into the earth. So maybe you can take us from here, from these lower chakras. In fact, this is a great place to begin. You said, have people check in with their lower chakras, which is actually a big challenge for people, because people, I did this real cold water swim. I won't get into all the good stuff, the fun stuff that I do, but I did a real fun cold water swim yesterday. And afterwards, I wasn't numb, but I wasn't fully there. It was so cold, I wasn't fully there in my body. And I get the feeling that's where a lot of people are today, is we're moving, but we're not fully embodied in the avatar.
And that's why, that's why the tradition, the Eastern tradition that's so valued, of the monk going to a cave to meditate. And that's looked at was like, oh my God, with so much reverence. Look at that monk. He's just sitting there meditating for 10 hours straight in a cave. How can he do it? And a lot of times people don't realize that maybe that monk is going to a cave because he's trying to escape his memories. He's trying to escape his trauma. He's trying to bypass because he can't deal. He doesn't know. He doesn't have the coping mechanism. So he's going off and he's meditating. And everybody is considering that a higher path. Meanwhile, the path that I believe is now coming into play is a more feminine path. And it's the path of going down, 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 down into your fears, down into your trauma, down into all of the dark little corners that you did not want to know about yourself, that you didn't want to remember, that you didn't want to deal with. This is what that work of going down into the pits, like in my coaching group, I call it the pity pits. It's the pity pits. It's literally the bottom of the barrel for you, what is down there. And we take years and years and years trying to escape, not looking at that. And that's why we're polarized up here with these fancy ideas about, let me meditate for 10 hours straight, or let me do this, or let me do that. And a lot of times we're kind of bypassing that work. That work is deep. That work is not pretty. It's not pretty. It's much prettier to see a motionless monk meditating for 10 hours than it is you rolled up in a ball sobbing on the floor because you just remembered a trauma and you're trying desperately to work through those feelings that are surfacing. That's not as pretty as seeing someone sitting straight in meditation for 10 hours. But that's the work that we're being called to do. And that's actually the best order of operations, because otherwise, if you're just polarized up here, you're going to end up doing a lot of crap, And I could give you example of guru after guru that has been caught in this trap of being unethical, of being sexually abusive, like we can go into this conversation because there are many examples of this happening all over the world. And so it's time for us to reverse that work, If you want to develop the upper chakras, develop the lower chakras. The upper chakras will develop all by themselves. You don't need to focus on them. I say this to people all the time, and it's not the answer sometimes that people want to hear, because they want to see, they want to have visions, they want to have psychic abilities, and the other work isn't as pretty, right?
Well, if you just have the psychic abilities, so much of the spiritual crowd, forgive me, everyone, I've been there. You're completely ungrounded. You're completely disconnected. And that's not why you're here. You're here as a walking, talking, living representation of the earth. That's who and what you are this lifetime. And now for myself, full disclosure, 3-4 hours a day for a couple years running 6-month stints, 1 6-month stint, then off, and then another 6-month stint of me holding space at a meditation center. Look at me. I'm so good. I hold space at whereas my whole life was going boom, blowing up all around me. And I ended up in my wife's childhood bedroom on 2 twin mattresses, like an 8x10 bedroom, going, what happened? Well, I wasn't getting real. And this is a time going into 2024 where we're going to first be forced to pull out our Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass, go into the bosom, go into the belly of ourselves and examine it. Not out of, I need to feel that pain and I need to hurt myself again. But as you're saying, as a scientist, to be able to look at it, to be able to examine it from all angles, and maybe even get to that place of, I want to release this, but how can this serve me?
Yeah. The way is through. It's one of my favorite mantras. The way is through, not over, not jumping on top of it, not trying to parachute over it, but through, and I think that's where shamanic energy is really, really amazing to have when you're doing this kind of work. Shamans are specialists at walking through the underworld, what's known as the underworld. And they carry a little torch and they just keep going and going and going. This is really the work. It's going through. And going through what? Well, what am I feeling? Oh, okay, I'm not going to grab my remote control and turn on the TV so that I can
Thank
escape
you.
what I'm feeling. No, it's what am I feeling, going through that feeling, letting that feeling process. You're not going to die. Nothing bad is going to happen. You're becoming more spiritually mature as you do
And
this, but the
breathe.
way is always through and breathe. Yeah, exactly. There are tools there are many tools that you can use to do this work, right? But the way is through. And then as that work is being done, you just the chakras above start to open up, like rose petals, they just start to open up, and they open up. They always open up based on how the chakras below are grounded. If they are not grounded, if you have not worked on these lower chakras, your upper chakras are going to be completely unbalanced. And this is where people get into the realms of illusions, of being totally disconnected from reality, of not even being here. And that's when I ask people, like, you are here, you came to be here in a physical body, in a physical avatar. If your soul
Yeah.
didn't want you to be here, you would be in another realm. So be here, actually be here, and all that entails, right?
How does someone know then if they are, because you can ask them, they're going, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. This is good. I understand this. I understand it's exciting. Although we get to watch for what I call the spiritual pyrotechnics. And somebody who goes, I just want to take ayahuasca after ayahuasca after ayahuasca. Okay, we may need to deal with the spiritual pyrotechnics here. Um,
Yeah.
but how do you help them to know, are you actually rooted or not?
Well, it's mostly having to do with their ability to and their openness to explore every aspect of themselves. I think that's a very clear indication if a person is grounded or not. So or at least when they're starting to feel grounded. So if I ask someone, is there something inside of you that you are unwilling to see, or unwilling to work through? And if the person says, yeah, like, you can work with me on these things, but we're not going into that room. And if a person says, I'm not going into that room, or I'm not opening that door, they're not very grounded. They're not rooted, because they're running, right? If you think about, I'm running. If I'm running away from something, I'm not rooted, I'm not grounded. It's the moment that I stop running and I say, there is nothing inside of me that I'm unwilling to see. Or another way of saying this, I am willing to see every single aspect of myself that my soul wishes to show me. I'm willing to open every door inside of me, of my inner world. I'm willing to overturn every single stone of my inner world. The moment that you say that, now you're immediately, just by saying that, you're immediately, and you can feel that. Can't you feel that in the energy when you say a statement that I am willing to see everything? Your roots just go, and it's like you grow up spiritually. That's what it means. You grow
Now,
up.
I also think by turning and facing to the direction you've been running from, forgive me, but you diffuse the bomb. In fact, there may not have even been a bomb there in the first place, but you're feeding it with fuel the more that you go and run from it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it kind of brings me to the story of all these metaphors that we have. Joseph Campbell was amazing at the metaphors, but even in movies, we see these movies where someone's walking with a torch in the middle of the dark, and they're so frightened because they can't see all of this. And then as soon as you bring the torch up to this look like a huge demon, and then suddenly you bring the torch up to it, and it was just a tiny little demon. It was just a tiny little thing. It
Yep.
wasn't big at all. And so that's the point of it all, really. Like, all the things that we're running away from, all the things that we're supposedly afraid of, all the things that we are unwilling to see, they're just places that need love. They are just places that need love,
Woo-hoo.
but again, it's not pretty work, right? It's not glamorous work. And so I understand the temptation of, let me go to my meditation class and let me, talk about my how aware and how mindful I am, and look at my mindfulness and look at my mindfulness. I know that seems a little bit more glamorous than, again, being rolled up in a ball sobbing. But
I'm the first to admit that I still go under the desk.
I
But
love
it's
that.
part of the work. It's the good stuff. We're human. It doesn't mean we're human. We're actually divine, energetic beings having an energetic experience in human form to help us to grow and evolve and ascend, not to return home, but to rock this, we'll use your term, avatar for all that she, he, they, it, all this beautifulness. That is why you're here till the wheels come off by leaning into it. So, a question I get to ask as you're watching this beautiful, exciting year of taking place before us of 2024. Are you bullish for our future? Are you excited for what's to come? How do you see this all unfolding before us right now?
I'm super, super excited. Um, Super excited, but also recognizing, the extreme polarization that's happening, like everything's shaking, right? And so sometimes I wake up and I'm super excited and I can see and I can hold that vision. And then other times I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am feeling so heavy today, and I think that's okay, like that is absolutely okay. It's perfectly okay for you to see the vision of what's being born, but at the same time also feel the suffering and the difficulties that are happening on the planet as we move to that vision. So again, I think the soft spot, I think that sweet spot is being able to envision the future and tap into that new timeline, but at the same time doing it with a lot of compassion, and also having the fortitude to be able to have compassion for the people that are suffering, to help in any way that you can. And so we can do both things. But I'm super, super, super excited. I am super excited, and I'm just super excited being here. Like it wasn't always this way, like it wasn't always this way. I almost left this planet a couple of times by my own hand because it was just not easy to be here. And so now I'm just excited to be here, even on the difficult days, It's just, I have this profound recognition that my soul is so excited at being here, and I'm going to honor that, I'm going to honor that.
Thank you. And I mean, it's like on a very Picayune level, it's like us cracking up at the internet challenges. We can be going, why? This is the time we had. We've got this and this and that, and you're
Yeah.
fighting, or you could just go, and that's life.
Yeah.
Where can people go, Christina, to find your work, to find your teaching, to find your coaching, to find every beautiful thing that you have to offer?
Yeah, so the easiest way, probably the best way that people find me initially, is to just look me up on YouTube. That's usually where people start in my work.
Yeah.
But you can always find my work on Christina Lopes or Christina-Lopes.com. You'll find my website with the coaching, our community. We have a beautiful community called Heart Alchemy that runs year round. So if you want to go on my website and kind of find out a bit more about what we do, you can go that route, or you can find me on YouTube very easily, also just looking up my name.
Thank you. Two last questions. One, how do we have, I'm not sure if the word is total faith and trust, but how do we know that if we unplug from what isn't working, that doesn't feel right, that doesn't feel in alignment, that something that is more in alignment will come our way?
Oh my God, how do we know? Oh, that's just a feeling, it really is just a feeling. And it brings me back to one of my favorite stories. Do you listen to the Abraham Hicks teachings at all?
Not very often. Don't have the chance with the show.
Yeah, yeah. So Esther Hicks, she tells some beautiful, beautiful stories about her and her husband. And there's a story that I just love that kind of exemplifies how much of a feeling this is. And it was, they used to love, he's passed on now, but they used to love to go fly fishing. And he would go fly fishing, and she said that she'd look at him and he would grab his little fishing pole and he would dart across the water, and he would just run across the water. And she couldn't understand how he did that. So one day she asked him, and she's like, how do you do that? Like, it looks like you're running in front of the water, like you're running on top of the water. Aren't you afraid of falling? Like, how do you? And he says, oh no, I'm not afraid. I just know that there's always a rock for me to put my foot on. And this is such an extraordinary vision, because it's like he knows that there's always a rock to put his foot on. And if he didn't think that, if he just started to slow down and think, oh my God, am I going to put my foot in a hole, or am I going to put my foot on a rock? He would fall. But it's that understanding that there is always a rock for me to put my foot on that is just such an extraordinary lesson on what it feels like to trust the universe. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and there's always a rock under your foot to hold you up. That's it. And it's not a thinking. This is not a thinking thing. In fact, if your mind gets involved in the process, you're going to fall. You're going to lose it. It's a feeling thing. I know, I feel that there's always a rock for me to put my foot on. And so it is, and so it is. But this takes practice. It takes a little
And
bit
you're
of
laughing
practice.
and I'm laughing, going, yeah, it does.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of practice, and you fall down and you get up, and you fall down and then you say, what? That wasn't supposed to happen. Well, says who? So you just fall on your face and you get back up, and then pretty soon you'll start to get used to going with the flow and going with the flow. And no matter what happens, it's always for your highest good at the end.
I never got tested, so I may or may not have had COVID this fall. I have no idea. But when I got back on the bike, it was a little bit too soon. I went out for a bike ride, and I had stopped at a ranger station, state forest, and stopped at a ranger station, and then went out riding, and I passed the turn for the trail that I wanted to take. And so, former pro cyclist, no big deal, hit my brakes, and I tipped over. No speed. I wasn't ready to be riding again. I was dizzy. And I tipped over as the ranger comes driving up. And all I could do is tip over on the ground, point to the sky, and laugh. I go, I know you've got my number. I know what just took place now. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to see the levity, that I call it the coyote energy, the trickster energy of the universe, and get this is all here for my highest good. And I'll go home now. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when you have that understanding that life is happening for you,
Yes.
it really makes things a lot easier. It doesn't mean that your life is going to be smelly roses all the time. No, but it means that you have a different vision when you do encounter the inevitable difficulties of life, right? You have a different vision, and to me, that's been absolutely crucial. And that's actually what got me through the most difficult phases of my spiritual awakening, was just this knowing inside. It's not a knowing here, it's a knowing in my heart, very, very deep in the pity pits, as I call them. It's a knowing very, very deep inside of me that there was a higher purpose to this, and that life is always, always working for me, even if I don't see it at the time. And so that vision was always really important to me, and it got me through a lot of difficult moments.
I hear it. It sounds young, and I don't quite mean it that way, but I hear the growl of a bear grabbing onto a rope, going, I am not letting go of this rope. And you had that growl inside of you.
Yeah. And sometimes I'd stop growling and I'd just let go of the rope and I'd fall, and then I'd fall and I'd figure out that, wow, I was supposed to fall, like, look, I fell into a stream that is taking me to
Thank
a
you.
better place than I thought I was supposed to go. And so life really is this beautiful combination, this complexity of tenacity, of resilience, right? Like being
Yes.
able to walk through all of your challenges, but at the same time surrendering also, right?
So I get to wrap things up. But my last question, then I know where we're going to go. I was going to say last words of wisdom, but instead of that, what can you tell us before we depart about heart resilience and how we take that with us as we leave here today.
Heart resilience. Heart resilience is really just about opening your heart no matter what. No matter what. And so many of us are guarded around the heart. We guard so much that we actually keep love away in all of its forms. Like we actively guard against love. And it really takes a lot of courage to be able to open that heart and lean into life with an open heart, right? Lean into life with an open heart. It's such a profound skill to learn. But the thought that you can have in your mind as you're doing this is that you're not going to die. You are not going to die, because a lot of times we guard around the heart because we are so afraid of being heartbroken. We are so afraid of potential pain that we actually close off to the potential of loving. And I always say to people, oh my God, when you really think about it, it's absolutely ridiculous. Isn't it better to have an open heart? And then if you do get hurt, who cares? At least you've lived a year or 2 years or 10 years in pure bliss. And then, all right, you get hurt. So what? Keep your heart open and then move forward, always carrying that love. Isn't that way better than guarding yourself against love for an entire lifetime? That's so depressing to me. That's such a tragedy to me when people walk this life with their hearts closed. And that's how I lived my life before my spiritual awakening. It's so painful. It causes so much suffering. You suffer so much more if your heart is closed than if you keep it open and let it feel everything that it has to feel, whether that's good, bad, ugly, whatever, So that's what heart resilience is to me. It's that unwavering commitment to feeling the world, and it really is a commitment. It's a choice. It's, again, a discernment, a choice point.
I used to call that being the open-hearted warrior. In fact, that's on the back of one of my books. And I used to have open-hearted warrior boot camps, but I'm not warrioring anymore. I can't resist any last words that you wish to share, because this has been beautiful, Christina.
You got to work with life. There's a lot of chaos down here. So that's probably my parting words for your viewers is there's a lot of chaos happening down here, but there's also a lot of beautiful things, and you have to choose where your focus goes. You have to choose where your focus goes, because it's either going to go to this beautiful vision or it's going to go to the past that's crumbling and the structures that are crumbling. And, like, you can hold the observation of all of the structures that are crumbling, and you can let them go and just choose to let them go and just embrace all of the beautiful things that are coming and the beautiful things that you are co-creating too, right? So just keep looking forward.
Woo! Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, embrace, lean in, cry, hide under the desk, embrace and lean in some more today. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! Wow. These are the interviews that I have fun. These are the interviews. All of the interviews are great, but I love it when we go pithy. I love it when we go deep. I love it when we go to the, what would it be? The pity? I love it when we go to the pitties. On that note, if you want a daily dose of goodness to bring your energy up out of the pitties, up, and way up, simply sign up at dailywoohoo.com to get your daily dose of inspirational, vibrational, attuning goodness. That's dailywoohoo.com. If you want to communicate with the other side of the veil, I'm actually holding a class tonight. It will be past that time, but I'll have another one. I have one once a month. But if you want to be able to communicate with the other side of the veil, come to automaticwriting.com. And if you want to learn how to use your super skills, use your gifts, lean in, do the shadow work, but do it with a group of others in a safe, warm, loving environment, then welcome home to the School of Mystics. Welcome home, and simply click on that link below to join the School of Mystics today. I want to send all my love your way. You are amazing. You are incredible. You are the divine. Here's the next amazing show to check out, and keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? And Sir Meowsers, I'm coming to get you food, my boy. I'm coming to get you food. Lots of love, everyone.